to do it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First item of the business is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any public comments?
There was no public comment.
Thank you.
None.
Next item is consent agenda. Are there any questions?
Nope. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We have 3 special presentations tonight.
Hey.
Mine's in the chat.
I had an extra pen.
Oh, you have the League of Municipalities one?
I don't have one of the, I didn't have one of them, I'm sorry.
I'll stand where I'm supposed to. First proclamation is the City of Junction City Arbor Day proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut the heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us newspaper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas Junction City is recognized as a Tree City USA for the 42nd year by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and desires to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, I, Pat Landis, Mayor of the City of Junction City, Geary County, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2018 as the 146th anniversary celebration of Arbor Day. In the City of Junction City, I urge all citizens to support efforts to care for our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. And I further urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of present and future generations.
Thank you, Mayor Landis.
Thank you. Sure.
I'll just let you take that for the next one. Ray will be doing the next one with you, and then you'll. Yeah, Ray. I think he'll be presenting it to you, though. Yeah.
Mayor Landers, Commissioners, we received an award from KDOT and the Kansas Contractors Association for partnering on the Geary County for our trail, West 8th Street Bike Path Trail. Remember in 2014, the City of Junction City was awarded Transportation Alternatives Grant for this application for a bicycle pedestrian trail. And on West 8th Street between Rucker Road and Stone Ridge. And on April 26, 2017, City Commission awarded the West 8th Street pedestrian bike path trail in the amount of $938,132. And our share was $214,000 of that. And with the West 8th Street bicycle pedestrian trail, it consists of demolition of the rock ledge on the north side of the intersection of West 8th Street Road, to give better vision clearance, added backfill to adjacent slopes for safety, new storm drain inlets, 10-foot wide concrete trail for walking and biking, lighting for the entire trail, and redesigning the intersection at West 8th Street, Rucker Road. In addition to that, we were able, with the assistance from Call Valley Engineering, and Chad McCullough will kind of talk about those pictures that are up there about the trail, we were able to get with the contract, get assistance with Caw Valley Engineering, KDOT allowed the contractor to take the dirt out of Helen Park, and we were able to make a 49-acre-foot detention pond to help downstream flooding in the Prices Ravine stormwater basin. So, Chad?
Yeah, these are some pictures that we had taken right after the completion of construction. The lights look really good. Westar was another partner in this. This partnering award was KDOT, the contractor, Ham out of Perry, Kansas, Westar, the city, and Caw Valley Engineering. So between those 5 agencies, we were able to make this project happen, and KDOT obviously funded a large portion of it, but a lot of people haven't seen it yet because that section of street's not open yet and the sidewalk's not open yet. As soon as we do a mill and overlay of that here, hopefully in a couple months, it'll get opened up to traffic, and not too long after that, KDOT will be done with the 18 and 77 project, and you'll be able to walk all the way out to Spring Valley Drive and over to the middle school. But
So the city manager can walk home now?
yeah.
Walk to
I walked down there. I walked it the other day.
This project's been a long time in the planning and development and execution, and it's going to be a great thing joining the eastern, western sides of our town. And it's something we can all be really proud of. Just can't wait for that bridge to get fixed up and we can fully use it. So it's a great partnership we've had with everybody to get this done. So I congratulate all of you.
And here you go, Mayor Landis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Reese? Proclamation for Peace Officers Memorial Day and Police Week. Whereas the Congress of the United States, by resolution passed in October 1962, designated May 15th of each year as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which the 15th falls as Police Week, and whereas all Junction City police officers currently serve our community combating crime and assisting the general public on a daily basis, and whereas the safety and well-being of the citizens of this community are in the hands of these dedicated law enforcement personnel, we acknowledge the importance of their pursuit of justice. Now therefore, I, Pat Landis, Mayor of the City of Junction City, do hereby proclaim May 15, 2018 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and May 13 through 19th, 2018 as Police Week. Chief Reese, thank you for all you do, and all your officers do. We wouldn't be here without you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This year, May 4th, is the Law Enforcement Memorial at the State House in Topeka. Get-together in the Rotunda starts at 11, and the ceremony starts at 12, which will then go out to the memorial, and they'll lay wreaths around the new people that are dedicated to this ceremony that have lost their lives in the line of duty. And I think some of those go back about a century that they keep researching and finding more. So that'll be on May 4th, and May 3rd, the day before, is a candlelight vigil on the State House grounds that night, if anybody's interested in going. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you get this back? Next item is new business, consideration of the request of the EDC for additional advertising funding in the amount of $6,000. Christine?
Mayor Landis, Commissioners, City staff, it's a pleasure to be here this evening with you, as always. We have been working on our 2018 marketing, and last year you were gracious enough to help us with some of that, and we're coming this year to talk to you a little bit about what we've planned for this year and ask for the support again in the amount of $6,000. We advertised last year in a publication called Site Selection Magazine. It is the top economic development site selection magazine in the country. Overall, there's about 47,000 publications that go out to their There are people in the United States and about another 6,800 internationally with Site Selection Magazine. Plus, they also take the magazine to every one of the trade shows, conferences, so forth that they do throughout the year. This is what the magazine looks like. It is, I read it cover to cover every time I get it. It's, like I said, very well respected. We did a full-page ad in Site Selection Magazine last year in November, and you may remember that you helped us with a 2-page editorial content investment profile and a full-page ad in the Kansas Magazine version of this last year. It is our opinion that we need to just focus on the actual national, international magazine this year predominantly. The actual cost for a full-page ad in this magazine anywhere from $12,200 up to $13,000 or more for a full-page ad. A 2-page investment profile starts at $19,900 and goes up from there depending on placement in the magazine. There's also such a thing called a banner header that would run for the 12 months of the year on their website. And we are talking to them about doing 2 full-page ads as well as 1 2-page profile. So a full-page ad in May, full-page ad in September, and a 2-page investment profile in November, which is their big issue that stays on everybody's desk till the next November, because it is actually the state ranking version, so everybody's referring to that. That is normally a cost of in the range of $50,800 to $52,000, $53,000. The closer you are towards the front of the magazine, obviously, the more costly and the more you'll have visibility. Due to our connections in the May magazine, we would be on page 11 with our full-page ad. So it is a request that we do a partnership 4 ways between the EDC, Junction City First, the county, and the city for a total of $24,000 for these 2 full-page ads and the 2-page profile, which would normally be in the range of $50,000 to $53,000 worth of advertising. So we're excited to get that kind of a value at that, and with this magazine for that price. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this particular organization, or I'll give you one quote from one of their customers. Scott Reed is the site selection engineer for all of Anheuser-Busch, and his quote is, "It is the leading, industry-leading magazine that is the best in-depth, insightful use of interviews with leaders in its field and provides the best resource, names, phone numbers for developing contacts within the local economic development agencies across this country. It provides us with the best high-level surveys of relevant issues to our industry." So,
If we wanted to have or see the magazine, where would we?
I have I get my copies because I'm a member and I subscribe. I have copies every month of their monthly magazines. You could come by the office and I could definitely let you take a look at it. If you want to take just a quick moment, this is their latest. This is March. This is my copy of it, but I can pass it around. It's a very nice magazine, very well done. It's owned by a company called Conway Data, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And Conway Data is one of the most well-respected organizations in this country for economic development data, information, contacts. They are also a division of an organization called Industrial Asset Management Council, of which I'm a member and I'm a fellow with. And Industrial IAMC, as we affectionately referred to, is a group of people that are members that are either Fortune 100 or 500 real estate people. So in other words, like the gentleman who is the real estate director for all PepsiCo's real estate property is a member of IAMC. So I attend their conferences. What's really cool is I could be sitting at a table like this with the director of PepsiCo's real estate, with the largest site selector in the United States or whatever. So those are all affiliated, and that's the connection we get through that as well.
Have you had prospects that, when they're calling, say, hey, we saw your profile in November and that's why we're calling you? Are you seeing a return?
We've
on it?
only had one full-page ad. It was last November. It wasn't a profile. It was only a full-page ad. It's the first one we've ever had in the magazine. So I've not literally, Mr. Underhill, had them call me for that. I can tell you that there is a lady that I'm very familiar with She's a site selector out of Chicago. Her name is Tracy Bossman Hyatt. She works with Lacey, Biggins, and Shapiro, which is one of the bigger site firms in this country. And she said she has literally had people come to her office as clients with that magazine in hand and say, you can look at sites across the U.S., but you will look at this one, and this one because I like their ad and I like their information in the magazine. Our first ad we've ever had full page was last November. So, I mean, we haven't had a whole lot of time yet, but I think the more we're petting out, there is a gentleman who I happen to know, his name's George Swift, who is my counterpart down in Louisiana, in a parish down there. He never misses a magazine, and he's had a considerable amount of success. And he will tell you that it's been very, very beneficial for him over the years to always be in the magazine. So.
Would you want to go over why those 2 months in particular are more important?
Certainly. They have, different editions have different focuses. The 3 editions that I've picked are logistics, transportation logistics, which are a fit for us, manufacturing. They also do state profiles in certain magazines. So one of the months, which I think it's September, is the Kansas, has some Kansas feature and profile. The other one is the defense and military edition, which I think is critical to us. So I tried to pick what were areas of interest that are focused for us, obviously being featured with one that is Kansas, and then the November issue is also the one that everybody keeps on their desk because it has all the state results for the year. So all your consultants are going to look at all those results comparatively. So that is the issue that's going to stay on their desk the longest because they're going to continually refer to that as, you know, for information. So that's why we selected those 3.
Let me explain real quickly on funding here, because that's always a question we get. For 3 new ones that were in part of the budget process last year. The city has a 1 mil levy for economic development, so about $175,000 and change. Going back to 2010, the city manager at that time and the commission bought into it, and we have continued every year, gives, and of course our partner is the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, give about 3/4. I think this year's about 77% of that money goes to the chamber. About $136,000 goes to the chamber, and we increased it by 2.5–3% last year, so we kept up with it. Always with keeping that money in hand for some additional things. The city owns some buildings, and there were some concerns about repair at the time. Of course, we sold one of those buildings last year. ACT building is still owned by the city, so, and we're building some funds to maintain those things that started. 3 years ago when I first got here, the city, when we had the big military listening tour, the city was able to draw on those funds because the city had about $10,000 in that listening tour from rent and just all the things we needed to do to make the good show that the community didn't make. So we could draw on that. A couple of years ago when the helicopter Lifestar needed some work in that building to keep them here, the city had that money available, so we've kept that. Last year, the city commission gave additional funding to the EDC and Mickey's leadership to help fund some specific projects. You know, we could change that, but like I said, what we've done has worked extremely well. We funded at a level that they've asked for. We may have to change that down the road, but it keeps accountability in place and it targets the special projects. And I'm supportive of this one here because I think Mickey and the whole the whole part about EDC that I'm learning from working around her is just getting your name out there and getting it out there and getting it out there and keeping it out there. And I think, you know, the network we're doing, and, you know, I consider economic development brick stacking. And it takes a lot of bricks stacked up to make it work. And sitting with Mickey through a couple site selector last fall, you know, when he comes in here and he says, my job is to eliminate you. And because you're kind of taken aback, but there was probably, he started with 500 cities that think they're as good as us. And then you make maybe 40, and his job is to tell his client 3 or 4 cities that he wants them to look at. And it's just, and the more repetition we do, I think the better off we're going to be. So, like I said, we have the money in place because we budget that full $175,000. It's just that about $40,000 of that money is discretionary to the commission.
And just a demographic that might be of interest to you for this magazine is that by job title, 43% of these magazines go to CEOs, presidents, owners, and chairmen or partners for large corporations. 16% go to vice presidents, CFOs. 34% go directly to managers, production people, manufacturing. 7% to other titled personnel or non-titled personnel within corporations. So the subscribers in the last year were responsible, so the people that are getting this magazine were responsible for 233 new projects each month, $22 billion in new capital investment, and 25,000 new jobs each month, if you look at all the people that are getting this magazine. So it's getting in front of the people that the very people we want to start getting in front of and keep getting in front of.
I have one question.
Sure.
Is there an alternate plan if for some reason one of the entities does not, vote to provide their share?
Their full share of the 6,000?
Just wondering.
Good question, ma'am. At this point, if the one of our partners, one of the 4 partners, doesn't provide their full share of the 6,000, I have some additional in my budget. I could pick up part of that. And then my request may be to come back to the other 2 partners to see if they'd help out with the differential. But I do have some extra that I could contribute to it from the EDC, which I probably would have used that for another advertising avenue for us as well. But if not, I can pick part of it up that way.
Tar and feathers.
Tar and feathers. I would not say that out loud, but you're the mayor. You can say whatever you want, sir. I know where we could find some feathers.
Any further questions for Ms. Dean?
I'll make a motion to approve this request of the Economic Development Council for additional advertising funding in the amount of $6,000.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any other further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you I would be remiss if I didn't say that Junction City First picked up their portion of it today. I'm sorry, Leon.
3 down, 1 to go.
3 down, 1 to go. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We're coming tonight.
Next item is consideration of resolution R 2837, setting a public hearing date for June 5th, 2018, to address condemnation at 403 West 14th Street. Mr. Carmen.
As you said, we're here to set a public hearing date. We did discuss this previously about 4 to 6 weeks ago, I believe.
Yeah, let me explain. We, when it was done, with the, go ahead and explain.
Okay.
You can do better than I can.
We had amended the ordinance governing nuisances a few months ago, or was it the end of last year?
1st February.
Yeah, okay, 1st of February. But when Mark brought this matter forward at a meeting about a month ago, he used, and I didn't notice till after the meeting, but he was using forms that had been generated under the prior ordinance. So they weren't valid, and they referenced the wrong statute or code section, and they also didn't require 2 publications, which was something our amended code requires, because that's what state law requires. So this is just to clean that up and do it correctly. And again, it's only to set the public hearing.
But I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have some.
Has anything changed with the property?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve resolution R 2837, setting a public hearing date of June 5th, 2018, to address condemnation of 403 West 14th Street.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration to award the Zenith zoysia grass 625 pounds bid to Turf Design in the amount of $18,693.25.
Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, here tonight seeking approval to purchase the seed for the second phase of the zoysia conversion at Rolling Meadows. Last year, we began with the first phase, which was the left side of all fairways and intermittent tees. Just over half of all the tees were converted. A week after seeding, we received about 4.5 inches of rain, and we lost a little bit of seed to seed wash. And then we had an extreme amount of goosegrass weed population that came up. So we were fighting that most of the summer, but once we got it under control, we started to see significant spread of the zoysia grass. All in all, of the 14 acres that were seeded last year, we'll only have about an acre to reseed again. So 13 out of 14 is not bad. To correct some of these problems, we're going to seed earlier this year. We're going to seed the last week of May, the first week of June, trying to beat the goosegrass to the punch, get a head start on it. And we will core aerify before we seed. So if we do have any significant rainfall again, the seed will just go into an aerification hole and we won't lose it to wash again.
We did this because we were spending about $20,000 a year on chemicals for the golf course. And with this type of grass, once it's set, you don't need those anymore. All the fungicides and things like that they were have to put on there. In the long run, it's going to save us a lot of money. So we took that budget for the chemicals and put that into seed. We did that last year. We're going to do it this year to finish it up for the fairways and the tee boxes. So, and over time, everything's going to fill in with it. So, plus, this type of grass uses a lot less water, so we're not going to have to run the irrigation pumps as often. Plus, that system is very old as it is anyway, as he certainly knows quite well. So,
and the labor is less intensive as well. Our last mowing was September 29th on the zoysia, and our last mowing on the cool season that remains was December 5th. So it's a big, big difference.
Yeah, we'll save a lot of money in gas costs, maintenance, upkeep, and so on.
Any complaints from the customers this spring because it hasn't greened yet?
Yes, there were some complaints. We had a couple gentlemen that felt that we should wait another year and let this side fully fill in before we start the other side. And I'm kind of a rip a Band-Aid off quickly and let's get it done as quick as possible rather than drag this out and be in construction mode for 5 or 6 years. Let's do it in 2 to 3 and just be done with it. So once I talked to them about it, they were more on board with it. But the dormancy color really isn't that much of an issue anymore. There's so many courses in the area that are zoysia. It's kind of a...
Culvert's that way. I played Lake Shawnee and Topeka, it's the same way. I mean, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially once this stuff gets set. I mean, I think it's going to be great.
And in talking with John, he had mentioned to me that there are some larger tournaments wanting to come to the area once we get the full conversion done. So
there is KGA, Kansas Golf Association. Yeah,
Yep.
We could get them back, which that's a good organization to have back.
That'd be great. Any further questions?
Nope, in here.
I'd make a motion, we award the Zenith zoysia grass bid to Turf Design in the amount of $18,693.25.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of ordinance G1220 regulating the distribution of handbills in the city of Junction City.
I'm going to defer to Katie because she did a lot of work and
Okay. So when the first draft of this ordinance came up, I heard some frustration on the part of some of the commissioners that we can't just prohibit this. But we can't. We can't just absolutely prohibit throwing of literature on people's property. We can regulate it, but we can't just say you cannot do it, period. There's federal case law that confirms
We can't force them to mail it. Can't do that.
No, can't. It would violate the First Amendment. But in regulating it, you can try to regulate it in as much a manner as possible that will, reduce the problems that you're experiencing, which is throwing it on people's property, on occupied property, where it just is blowing on other people's property back into the street.
Would they be fined for littering if that's the case?
Yes, they can be fined for
And then how do we
littering.
define that? I mean,
Well,
what is truly littering? Is it 3 handbills laying there or 10 or?
There is, I didn't look up your littering ordinance, because there is a littering ordinance in your code. But what I tried to do here to make it a violation of both, there's always the littering ordinance, which is, it includes more things than throwing handbills. But here, the way I tried to give you a remedy against the people, give the city a remedy against the people who throw these handbills, is to add provisions which prohibit the throwing of these articles in a manner that will cause them, or you should know would cause them, to blow onto other people's properties. In other words, to try to encourage them to put them in, some people do have, mailboxes for that sort of thing. It also prohibits them, if you've indicated in any way you don't want them to throw the materials on your property, then they can't, and it would be a violation. And it doesn't have to be a sign. You can communicate it to them in any way. It also, I added a provision that makes it a violation if they distribute it on private property, which is conspicuously, you have to use that word, but conspicuously uninhabited or vacant. Because if it's not conspicuous that it's vacant, how the heck are you supposed to know?
Sure.
So I tried to put some provisions in here that would put more teeth in the version we got from the city of Newton, but you just simply can't prohibit it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, but you don't have to, the police department wouldn't have to use the littering. This actually has its own penalty
Yes.
section, so you don't have to use the littering ordinance
Right.
with it. This has its own penalty phase, so you can actually just
Right.
charge a violation
Right.
based on this ordinance.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was struggling a little with, and going back to what Commissioner Brown is talking about, if something is thrown in my yard, does the person that's putting it in my yard or driveway have to get my permission to do that?
They don't have to get your advance permission to do it. But if, for example, let's say it's a shopper, that newspaper XYZ puts out, and you receive it and you don't want it, and you pick up the phone and you call them and say, don't deliver this anymore, and they continue to do it, then they're violating this ordinance. So all you have to do is tell them not to, and if it happens again, I think you could call the police department and say, this happened again, and I've told them not to. But there is federal case law that considers the question of, can you only throw it on people's property if they've affirmatively given you permission to do it, which is a subscription, essentially. And you can't prohibit it that way. You can't say, because it's considered to be a First Amendment right. But you can prohibit them from doing that very same thing if you have, they've done it and you've communicated to them in some way, don't do it. Or you have a sign that says no handbills, no solicitations.
We had a case several years ago where an individual clearly had a documentation that he had sent a letter to the person,
the
entity that was
organization.
dropping those off, and it actually went through municipal court.
Yeah.
So, but I think that we used the littering.
Yeah, you
ordinance in that
probably
case.
did then.
We did.
Yeah.
For the licensing fee, $50 for 7 days and $500 for an annual. Seems like that's a little cheap for the annual compared to the 7-day.
I put,
It was lower when we first got it.
yeah, it was way lower.
Oh, and I understand. I just wonder if it ought to be 1,000.
Yeah, I was thinking
That would-
1,000 too,
that would
especially
scare-
for a
And
business.
then,
That's pretty cheap for a business.
and then would the penalty mirror that again then? Because in here, the penalty kind of mirrors the licensing fee.
But it's each day. Remember the penalties each day.
Okay.
But, you can, frankly, I don't have a real strong feel for what, your court would do, or, and there's some licensing fee that I think would be, $20,000, I don't think would
I'm
be
not saying
reasonable.
that,
But, so I'm not sure I have a good feel for what the fee should be, so if you want to try something, unless somebody challenges it, I think $1,000 would probably be.
It's for a year,
Right.
50 for 7 days, and I don't know.
I agree with that.
And whenever someone comes to get or pay that license fee, do we automatically give them a copy of the ordinance so that way? I mean,
You certainly could.
I would,
You
you know,
certainly
so
could.
that way
Yeah.
they're aware
Yeah.
that if there's violations or,
Here's the rules. Click.
yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah, that's simple enough.
You can hand it
know,
out with the application.
I think that'd be
Yeah.
a good idea. That'd be
And
an
then they can
excellent
read
idea.
That way
it.
it's all above board,
Yeah.
no,
And they learn
You know,
too.
and initially, somebody doesn't get one, we'll catch them, and then, And of course, as I was told by a police officer one time, ignorance of the law doesn't count, so.
I've been told that.
probably at home.
I have at home been told that. No doubt.
So if a motion is made to approve it, it should include the changes you want made.
Is everybody good with that?
Yeah, I'm
1,000
good with
for the,
I'm good with that.
So
Annual.
it'll be to increase the yearly license fee to $1,000?
yes.
Okay.
And so you put a motion, just go ahead and do the ordinance with that amended,
As amended.
or with that caveat.
Any further questions or discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance G 1220 with the,
1223.
I'm sorry,
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the next one.
1220.
You're right, I'm good.
G
with that.
1220 with the inclusion of a maximum cost for the license of $1,000, the annual license.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment?
Comment,
Sure.
when you say a maximum of 1,000, does that kind of leave that open at anywhere from 0 to 1,000, or should we?
Well, it's $1,000 for a yearly license.
$50 for a 7-day, 1,000 for
For
an
an
annual
annual
license.
license.
Not up to $1,000. That's rated. Any further discussion? All in favor, let's see, nope. Ordinance. Roll call.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Albritton?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next item is consideration of ordinance G 1223, regulating the possession or consumption of alcoholic liquor or cereal malt beverage in public places.
This started, we're going to get a request from the Convention Visitor Bureau to use Spin City for an event they're going to host this fall when they host the Kansas TIAC Association, Travel Industry Association of Kansas, and do an event and bring alcohol in. Looking at our city ordinance, and as we had a few weeks ago, we approved, the commission approved the use of the gymnasium for the sundown salute in the city building, because you could. Well, when we went that ordinance, we found there was 2 buildings the city doesn't even own anymore, and then it didn't cover this. So we covered this, and I'll let Katie talk about what she's all done here. We also have, it'll be a separate ordinance, so not tonight, when we get the request from Sundown Salute, and maybe you can touch that a little bit, is that we've been approving the use of selling beer in the park and also on the street there during Sundown Salute, with some changes in the state law. It'll be an ordinance that'll be passed each year to approve that. So go ahead and explain it then.
Okay. So under what I did, Alan told me to look at the current city code provisions that govern use of alcoholic liquor on public property. And there are 2 concepts there. There's use of alcoholic liquor like on public streets, where you've, agreed to that, because, in general, you're not supposed to be consuming alcoholic beverages or cereal malt beverages on public streets. But the second part of it is the consumption of alcohol in city buildings, okay? And you had a provision, and it was really old, really, really old, that permitted the consumption of alcoholic beverages in certain designated city buildings, which is Helen mentioned, some you don't own anymore and some that you do own, and you would want to allow consumption at special events and things, weren't included on the list. So we updated the list to include the Opera House,
Yeah.
Spin City,
Rayther
Rayther.
We had Rayther, but it was also covered in another part of the code.
yeah, well, Rayford is actually for cereal malt beverages. But we updated it to, so now it permits you to allow the service and possession and consumption of alcoholic liquor in the municipal building, Spin City, C.L. Hoover Opera House, and Rolling Meadows Golf Course Clubhouse. Now, that all has to be in accordance with state statutes that govern, the permits that have to be pulled by whoever's going to serve it. But it was just that was mostly a correction of your old ordinance and updating some of the state law provisions which have to be in the code. And I did the same thing with there was a separate section in your code that governed consumption of cereal malt beverages on public property. So I updated that as well and included the same buildings plus Raythert Stadium, which was also already covered in your code, but in a different place in your code. So made those two sections consistent with current state law. But the other thing that has changed since your code governing these things that's been enacted by state law is if you want to permit the consumption on public property like streets and city parks and things like that, you can do it, but you have to pass a special event ordinance for each event that designates the area within which the people consuming the alcohol or cereal malt beverages have to stay in. And I know Prairie Village does it for their art fair, and they just put police tape around to show, once you go past this point, you can't carry your alcohol around. And so that will come next, but you're really supposed to do those by separate ordinances for each event.
That makes sense.
And Prairie Village does it every year for their arts fair. It's the exact same ordinance, except the year changes.
Sure.
So that'll be a cleanup thing that'll come.
We did have a question. We did not put the 12th Street Center in there, when I didn't think of it, and I don't know if you wanted to add that. Realizing that any of these uses, except if a city's use, it's one thing, but if it's another use that wants to use the building, they will have to come to the commission to get approval each and every time. Like we did with, and that was the first one we had since I had been here, even for the gym. I realized we went through a period where the former city manager just kind of stopped it, but nevertheless, we had that ability to. So the question would be 12th Street Center, and that one, that could be an argument. Is that our youth place? Do we just leave it alone? We do have a small residential type kitchen in there, but that's,
my opinion would be that we would include it and
Mine
just
too.
take care of everything. That way, if it comes up in the future, we're not coming back to this ordinance.
My concern is if we're having a adult type, event going on at these facilities that we can't have kids that would normally work there at that night or that time.
Yeah.
We need to have some, I don't know if that's an HR thing or
well,
doesn't need to be part of this probably, but
realizing that every use, so if I want to have a family reunion at a building and have alcohol, I'll have to get commission approval every time. So we can address those things at that point in time.
you wouldn't want kids working there when
Right.
adults are drinking and stuff, and that wouldn't be right. So
Yeah, if you want to add the 12th Street Center, we can simply add that.
it's a city facility, and I think we're just doing that to cover it. But again, it's
So
all
we'll add, when you make a motion to approve this,
to include the
add
12th
the-
Street Community Center.
okay.
And at a subsequent meeting, we'll have one for Sundown Salute when they get all their stuff.
Sure.
That'll be a separate ordinance.
Is there any further discussion?
Nope.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance G1 or 1223, regulating possession of consumption of alcohol, liquor, and cereal malt beverages in a public place with the amendment to include the 12th Street Community Center as a listed site.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? Roll call vote?
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Albritton?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Next item is consideration of ordinance G 1224, correcting the numbering of Article 3 of Chapter 235 regarding nuisances.
I want to defer to the city attorney again.
When I was looking at the resolution that was passed on the property that you had to repass, and I was looking back at the statute that, or the code that changed that you had made in February, I realized that there were some typos in the numbering. And in one place, a numbering of 2 sections repeated itself, which caused all the rest of the sections to be off. So this is the exact same ordinance with the corrected numbering of the sections.
Any further concerns?
I make a motion to approve ordinance number G-1224, correcting the numbering in Article 3 of Chapter 235 regarding nuisances.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment?
Nope.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Albritton?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Carries 5-0. Last item is consideration of the environmental review for the playground park project.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, of course, you know we got the community development block grant for the park project. And when you get money from the state or federal government, you follow state and federal rules. And one was to have an environmental study. So Justine Benoit with Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission did the study. As we all thought, there was going to be no environmental because it's basically a park and a playground. You put it in there. You know, there is a piece in the back. I'll have to sign off that I'm not disturbing any Indian burial grounds and stuff like that. And, you know, silly as it may sound, it's a grant requirement. You can go through it if you want, but it's pretty, I've never, in all the years I've been with environmentals, I've never hit one yet because mostly in Kansas, we don't have a lot of the issues with a spotted owl or a frog or whatever the case may be. So, but the commission does need to prove this so we can move forward.
Any other questions?
I make a motion to approve the environmental review of the playground park project.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Commissioner comments? Mr. Underhill?
I don't have anything this evening.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Sorry. I spent the last hour trying to think of something for you.
Thank you.
You did not hear that. Mr. Albritton?
The only thing I have is I would encourage everybody to try to attend the Junction City citywide cleanup. I believe it's this Saturday. I believe 8. Just correct me if I'm wrong. In the Spin City we're meeting at, correct? Spin City. So I'm gonna try my best to be there, and I would just encourage everybody to get out. Should be. Hopefully the weather is nice. Hopefully spring will finally show up a little bit. Hopefully, but
Good shoes and gloves.
so
A raincoat.
just encourage everybody to be there. That'd be wonderful.
Umbrella.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Commissioner Brown?
I don't think I've ever seen Homer's Pond as low as it is right now. That shocked me today. I've been here since 1976, and I've never, ever seen it that low before, I don't think. And that really how low in the water, and that's something. I couldn't believe it. I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we're coming into the springtime season here. Keep your lawns mowed, keep the boats off the street, keep the basketball goals off the street, keep the abandoned vehicles off the street, and try to make our city look nice. It's very important to all of us to make sure that our community looks good, and we'd sure like to make sure that everybody makes their best effort to do that. We did attend a Pregnancy Service Center banquet last week. I don't know if folks are aware of it. I really, truly wasn't. They're located in the 800 block of North Washington. where the CVB used to be. They're changing the name, I think, to the JC Pregnancy Center.
Yeah.
I think. And very valuable asset to our community. I think they provide a wonderful service for those folks and that need their services. And if you're not familiar with it, you should try to at least check it out. And I think it's a great thing to have in our community. I don't think I have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. You didn't have anything, did you?
I did. This is my notes of what I had. Is it my turn, Mayor?
Two things.
Okay, I circled 3. Just would like to give an update on our Chestnut Street flower bed project. A big shout out to all the citizens of our community and local businesses. There's 15 of those beautiful flower beds out there, and the city has done a fantastic job getting them ready for the sprinkler system that's going to start going in 1 through 9 May. So we're going to be planting after 9 May. I guess the weather would cause any adjustment on that, but that's our plan. And all the flower beds have been taken care of except for one in the sense of cost. So, and again, that's thanks to the citizens and businesses for stepping up to the plate on that. Also, the MAC committee that I chair, we had our meeting this past week. And just a reminder, on April the 26th is our MAC breakfast at the Marriott. And our speaker will be retired Lieutenant General Perry Wiggins, and he will be talking to us about the state of the military in Kansas. So if you want to attend that MAC breakfast, you need to RSVP to the chamber by the 20th. Also, coming up on the 28th, Saturday, is the next legislative coffee.
That was canceled
Oh, it's been
today.
canceled? Never mind. Guess we got that updated. It was canceled today. Thank you. So you did have something. Also,
Taking yours.
a couple of other things, and I'll be real quick on this. Last Friday, on the 13th, I attended the Eastern Kansas Veterans Affairs in Fort Riley sponsored suicide awareness workshop. It was at the Marriott. It was the first that they've had, and it was a really, really good program. The place is pretty well filled up. Had a lot of good speakers that was in attendance. A lot of veterans were there, a lot of active duty. A lot of the people from the community was there to hear about suicide awareness and what to do if someone's in a situation or crisis like that. I have a few other things, but I think I've probably said enough for this evening. So, Mayor, I'm done.
You okay?
No, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
I'd like to reiterate what Commissioner Albritton said about Earth Day. We need everybody's help out there to keep the city looking good. I probably ought to give the vice mayor a day off that day because she's out there all the other Saturdays of the year. So the rest of us can pitch in that day. 8 o'clock at Spin City. Wear good shoes, wear good gloves. It's always necessary. I kind of pitched an idea about having a sign created where Chestnut Street intersects the roundabout stating Junction City, home of the big red one. We all know that we are, but I think we need something that lets everybody else know that we are too. And I think that would be something we're going to look at. It's that's in KDOT right of way, so we're going to have to see if we can get permission for that. Looking at a granite block for that, it would be few dollars, but we'll see what we can do to find that funding perhaps in the community through donations, but I think that would be a really good thing for us to look at. So that's all I have. Mr. Dinkle.
Joint City County School meeting on Monday. I think I sent the agenda right to you. The school is hosting this time. Going to talk about the new school building, of course, and I believe also the sheriff was concerned and talk about law enforcement in schools. Tammy and I are going to a CDBG workshop in Topeka tomorrow with the great survey that was done last summer by the committee. Some of you all volunteered that as well for the Community Development Block Grant. It's a glowing survey that we can use for CBG grant applications per at least the next 5, maybe 6 grant rounds. And I think we need to use and take a look at it. We'll talk about projects later on. We'll talk about that, but a very good asset. The survey we have, it hasn't been totally approved yet because this is the first survey that was done where it was a random sampling, everything in the whole city. And I think it's moving forward, but it's the first one done of its kind. So kudos back to that committee last fall and everybody that volunteered because that was not an easy task because on a random you had to have a 100% return. They got it done and I know everybody worked hard and we appreciate that. And I think in a meeting or two, the playground committee is going to come here talking about getting ready to put out for bids and the whole bit to get that project. So that project's moving along quite well. Audit is happening this week. I met with the auditor this afternoon and nothing that worried me at least, so sounds good. And Shauna has got everybody started on the budget process and then we'll keep working that and moving forward. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Logan?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Settles?
Nothing.
Ms. Melton? Chief Reese? Chief Johnson? Mr. Ibarra? There's always one.
On the Clink project, they have completed the portion from 6th to 10th Street. So all they have to do is do the collars around the manholes, the water valves, and then we'll paint the parking stripes when it warms up for the parking area. And then after they get completely done, they'll do the thermoplastic on it. And then also a little update on that sewer line project from on the north side of Valley Drive all the way up to Liberty Hall. We have made contact with the property owners. One property owner right now is amenable to letting us have an easement, so we're working on the other two to try to get that done.
Great.
And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Lazier? Mr. Osborne? Very well. Mr. Grumman?
Nothing, sir, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we're out.